Hi everybody, time for another midweek chat. It is August 28th, which I think is Bonnie and Menominee's birthday, and it's my friend Bruce and Wausau's birthday, because I always remember their birthday falls on the feast day of Saint Augustine, and that's today. Bonnie's a great artist, and Bruce is a great man, and he manages the liquor department at County Market, and good guy. So, high school classmate. Anyway, so I'm at the Eau Claire County, the Old Orchard. I forget what they call it. It's a cemetery. So it's the Old Orchard County Cemetery, I think is what they call it now, since 2007. So around me was this county orchard, and it was called it's just very close to St. James. It's just about, I suppose, a mile as the crow flies, probably a little more, but not two, I don't think. It was supposed to be kind of a windless day, so I thought I'd go here. There's not a lot of shelter from the wind, but it should be okay. But it's called the Eau Claire Asylum, and it was a place, I think, where maybe people with disabilities or mental illness went, and they, as the sign said over there, where they had wholesome employment, and I guess farmed the area and picked fruit, and so a lot of the people whose bodies are buried here were at the asylum. And then after the asylum closed, were indigent people who didn't have any relatives and no money. Some of them were buried here too. So you see names. Well, what's kind of startling to me is some of the stones just say unknown, and some of the stones say John Doe or Jane Doe, meaning, don't know. So that kind of took me back when I saw it. Everybody's made in the image of God, and some people find prosperity and community and life and love in life, and other people die unknown to anyone. And so I grieve that a little bit when I come here. But it's a sacred ground. It's been mowed. The city or the county takes care of it, and they mow the lawn. Some of the stones are overgrown with weeds and dirt, but it's not forsaken, right? So that's where I am, at the Old Orchard County Cemetery. It's just about the size of one lot. I'm probably about a third of the way from the street in front of me, and then 2/3 back. So just beyond these trees is the Eau Claire Water Tower on the west side. It says Eau Claire. It's got I did a chat from the school once that had a view of the water tower behind me, and rightfully so. The administrators of the school came out and said, "What are you doing here? You're not going to film our children or anything, are you?" And I said, "No, please. I'll be done in 10 minutes." And they were kind. They let me do it. So anyway, that's where I am today. Hey, if you've been reading the bulletin or watching the chat, you know that I lost my icon, right? I found it. You'll never guess where I found it. In the house where I live. It wasn't hidden. It was out. It was like if you go if you go upstairs, there's a little corner prayer area that I have, and then opposite that is the stairwell that brings you up. And there's like once you get upstairs from the floor, there's like a railing that goes up, a little decorative thing. And it was just leaned against the railing there on the second floor. And I looked in that room many times for the icon. So, I reflect on the bulletin. It's too bad I get so attached to things. But, and I'd given up. I thought, well, I don't know where it is, and I don't know that I'll find it. So about a week ago, I didn't care anymore. That's the thing about coveting things and being greedy about things, is it does pass if you don't get too attached to it, if you don't feed it. That story about the two wolves, it's a great story. It's like a Native American story. If you've never heard it, if you've heard it, it's just repetitive and you're rolling your eyes. I'm telling it, but so this youngster is growing of age, and he's troubled by, I guess we'd call it sin. He doesn't say it was sin, but he said he just went to his grandfather and said, "I just feel like I have this battle going inside my heart. It's that part of me is wants to love and be generous and take part in the rituals of our people, and know that I'm not the center of the world, and be kind and, you know, serve my neighbor. And that's really part of me. But another part of me just wants to always have the biggest piece of cake, and I want this, and I don't care what other people say, but I want my way, and I get greedy, and I want more. And, you know, you get the idea, right? And he says, Grandpa, I don't know what to do about this. What should I? And he said, yo, grandson, you know, everyone has that battle in their hearts. Everyone has two wolves, and they're at war with each other inside of you. And then the kid was like, oh my gosh, well, which one's gonna win? Which one's gonna win this war inside of me? The good wolf or the bad wolf? And Grandpa says, whichever one you feed, my son, whichever one you feed. It's a good story, you know. So if we can not feed our greed so much, it's because when you know, nothing feels better than really, you know, wanting what you want and then getting it, whether it's a thing or an ice cream sundae or a, you know, whatever, something you're trying to give up, and feels good to get it. So that's why we keep doing it. It gets to be a little addictive, but if we can kind of wait it out and not feed it and learn to put things in God's hands and ask. For me, it's like, what's the worst case scenario if I don't find my icon? Nothing too bad happens, right? I just don't get what I want. I lose something, and that's okay, because my life's not about that. It's about trying to stay in communion with God, trying to stay in communion with other people, and not getting what I want doesn't jeopardize those things at all. so it's no big deal. Which I'll maybe talk about in light of St. Augustine. But while I got this here, so now that I got it, I think I showed pictures. But this was a big one. It was on sale because they discontinued it. That was another problem, was I couldn't get a new one. But that's the picture, right? That's Mary's assumption into heaven, and all the apostles had gathered with her here, which was like her tomb. That's where they laid her body. There's divergent traditions whether she fell asleep or whether she actually died. I don't think there's a Catholic doctrine. I don't think they necessarily take either side on that. But this would be like, this is her tomb. This is for her. And there's just flowers there now. So anyway, the apostles went there, laid her in the tomb, and whether, you know, she was still kind of alive or not, certainly they thought in this story that she was dead. So in this story, they say generates around the year 1260, was the earliest known of this tale. Anyway, so they all leave, and then Thomas is late. And he comes late, and this is St. Thomas, my patron. And by the time he gets there, his lateness, his tardiness is rewarded, because he sees Mary being taken up into heaven from her tomb, and he's the only witness of it. And she gives him this little, they call it the holy girdle, which I still think is odd, but it's like the sash of her robe. And Thomas gets it. Now he has to go, just like they had to convince him the Lord is risen, now he has to go teach them that Mary's been assumed into heaven. Everybody, look, I have the sash, everything. So anyway, isn't it lovely? It's just kind of fun, because I'm Thomas, and that's Thomas, and it's a nice tale of Thomas. So I've told that story, and hopefully you've learned it, and it's part of your lore of the saints, legends of the saints. Before I get into St. Augustine, let's see. So it was a sad, kind of a sad day. It was always a hopeful day when we're in a Christian community, that even death is not the end. So we had a funeral today for Dick Piltz, and I have to say I really enjoyed him. He was kind of a teaser, a joker, a very kind to me, and he was always at Mass with his wife Mary, if they were in town, you know, and he's a local business guy. You might have heard of Piltz Glass. You know, he started that. His son Greg runs that now, and some other businesses he ran. Anyway, we said goodbye to him today, and like it says in the Eucharistic prayer, at death, life is changed, not ended. So it is with our relationships with people who've died. They change, they don't end. So it's a goodbye of sorts, right? It's kind of an hasta luego, until later. But even more than that, I don't know. It's really not even that. I think we carry people, right, don't we? When they've died, they live on in our hearts, and we have a continuing relationship. So it's not like there's this big gap until we meet again in heaven. but there's this continuing reality of relationship in our lives. So I take heart in that. So I have a lot of happy memories there. So, and he was always very generous with, especially with, he said, is there anybody that's in need in the parish, let me know. And so he would kick in a lot of money at Christmas time or something if we had some people that could use a little assistance. So anyway, God rest to Dick. And then I get back after coming from the cemetery for Dick and find out we have 2 other parishioners who died today or last night. So Jerry Nelson, when I came, he was the chair of the Parish Finance Council. He and Father John worked together for years, and me a little bit, through some pretty challenging times. So kind of like war buddies, those 2, I think. And so I talked to his wife Eileen today. His funeral is going to be Tuesday. Hope Father John can come to that Tuesday after Labor Day. So what is that, September 3rd? And there'll be a visitation the night before at the Augusta Funeral Home, Anderson's, I think it's called. That's where he grew up, and that's where he wanted the funeral home together. But the funeral itself will be at St. James on Tuesday. So Jerry Nelson, and last time I visited him, he was in pretty strong decline, and but he's so proud of his hunting pictures, being in the Rockies or somewhere out there with the big elk, bull elk. And so it's a loss. Someone who played a significant role in our parish over the years. And then another all-star, Mary Hagens. So Mary's 98 years old, and she died apparently last night. And so I haven't talked to the family yet. We don't have a set with the funeral time. It's but just a dear person. She was always inquiring about my mother when I'd see her. She'd come to 10 o'clock Mass and sit with her buddies, Nancy and Peggy and Emma and some others there. And I think I was a little embarrassed because I wasn't going to go see Mom on Monday, or it was two Sundays ago maybe. I can't remember which one now. Oh yeah, last Sunday I was gone because we had the missionary. And she'd always say, are you going to go see your mother today, or your mother tomorrow? And usually my answer was yes, but that time it was no, because I wasn't going. And I think I felt a little embarrassed, so I just kind of said no and walked off. So that was my last interaction with Mary. Could have been better. Yeah, she always went to our school masses, and the kids loved her. They'd give her hugs and all this. And yeah, apparently Christine or Anne was telling me that she told her daughters that she felt her husband Larry calling out to her last week. Like, I think maybe it's time to go join Larry. Larry, I never knew. He died probably about 10, 11, 12 years ago, just before I came. But he was like a parish all-star, would fix the broken pews and all these things. They just live like 5 houses away from St. James. So that's a big gap in our parish life, the passing of Mary Hagens. But also, it's something to celebrate when these people that have, Jesus, it's our covenant with Jesus. Jesus says, I lay down my life for my sheep. If you lay down your life for me and my people, I will raise you up. So these people all did that, and that should be a reason for us to smile a little bit in the midst of our sadness, because if what we believe is true, they're enjoying God's eternal reward, and it's really helps us to grieve, right? St. Paul says that we grieve, but not like the rest who have no faith. We still grieve. There's still sadness. It's not like happy when someone dies, but there's that element of hope and admiration and gratitude for lives well lived that God gave us for a while, right? And all these lived pretty long lives. So Mary was 98, Dick was 85, Jerry I don't think was that old, but I think into his 70s. Anyway, so kind of an important day in our parish that way. Okay, other things. Religious education kicks off next week, Wednesday, with a Mass sometime around 6 o'clock, 6:15 maybe, and that'll start things out. The school has drop-in day where students come with their parents and check out their classrooms, drop off their pencil cases and whatnot. Weren't those great days? Remember those days? You'd get a little list of things you needed to bring for school. And I used to always remember a pencil case. When's the last time you thought about using a pencil case? A scissors, a pencil case, number 2 pencils with erasers, maybe a block eraser. Seems like that pencil case got pretty full, but for the life of me, I can't remember what else you would need besides a pencil and an eraser and a scissors. Oh, gosh. Yep. Happy memories. So, football starts up. I don't know if Regis has played yet. North almost beat my old school, Menominee. I didn't go there, but I was pastor there. But Menominee pulled it out in the last minutes, I guess. All right, so then classes start next Wednesday. So Wednesday will be a big day, a week from today, at St. James with all the kids showing up. I was reading a little news today, just kind of third world stuff. None of it was happy. I mean, I get this daily French email from Lacrosse, and I like it because it gives news. It gives the news that you'd see on, the cable news channels too. Some of those headlines, but I like because the articles are really only about 4 paragraphs long, which I hope isn't a sign of my superficiality. But I have a hard time reading the longer articles, and but I like this one because besides the famous things that are going on, it talks about the war in Sudan. It'll talk about something going on in Indonesia, that I just don't hear about because everything's just, especially now in our channels, it's just, election, and what they said. It's a little tiresome after a while because I know there's so much going on in the world. Anyway, the Sudan, for the last 16 months in Sudan, there's been this, what was called a fratricidal war going on. So that's where brother kills brother, just kind of an awful civil war, kind of like our American Civil War in the last century, 1860s. I was going to say last century. It's 2 centuries ago. It's like, whoa. Getting old. Yeah. And just all this terrible stuff going on. And a lot of gang violence and lawlessness and no clean water and just devastating situation, And then it just highlighted a few people that in the midst of it all are trying to work for peace and bring aid to those who are in danger of dying for lack of food or water, shelter. It's, I guess, why isn't it in our news so much? I guess it's not in our national interest. It doesn't affect us that much in terms of economics. There's no images. We don't see a lot of photos of it. But if we took in all the sorrow of the world, there wouldn't be a paper that could hold it all. And yet, kind of like the cemetery, the forgotten ones. There's so much dying and injustice in the world that doesn't come across our awareness, or mine anyway, because it's not in the news that I see. Remember them. And then I heard a radio show about cobalt. Apparently they need the mineral cobalt for our smartphones, which I'm recording this on. And I don't know if it's part of e-vehicle batteries, but there's just that whole world, who's going to get the cobalt? Who's going to get what do they need for EVs, lithium, and there's just a lot of human, near slavery, getting those minerals out at a cheap price to go to the highest bidder. And the person on the radio show said, yeah, you might think twice before you buy a phone about the blood that went into that. And I'm like, oh gosh. So we are caught in a web of this global reality. And it's hard to imagine not having a smartphone because they use cobalt that oppresses its workers, and yet to just globally say, well, it doesn't matter, that's not true either. I remember remember talking to some parishioners at a couple of parishes ago where I was at, and I just read about how jet skis burn. It's kind of like for every 4 gallons burned, 1 gallon of raw fuel just goes right into the lake. And that was making Lake Tahoe, which you used to be able to see like 75 feet down in clarity, to be like 15 feet. And just hurting a lot of our lakes. And then I came across at a party, these parishioners were saying they go up north and they like to use their jet skis. And maybe the technology's improved now, I don't know. But I just couldn't help myself. I told that story. I said, well, you know what jet skis do to lakes? And a wonderful person, and she listened to me. She said, hey, she was sort of speechless. I mean, what do you say? This priest just told me that my favorite form of recreation is destroying the lakes, pouring all this raw fuel into the lake. And she just kind of looked at me and she said, well, I know, but there's so much fun. There's so much fun. I was like, yeah, I know. I mean, that's kind of the pickle we're in. It's of life, right? And we know that flying isn't good for global warming, but we fly all over the place. I don't know. Anyway, it's tough. We should do what we can, and certainly not be unaware of how our actions affect others, even far away. But how much are we willing to sacrifice if we don't think it's going to make that much difference? So these are hard things. So St. Augustine, he died in around 425 or so. A lot of this is very approximate, so I think I'll get the major swaths correct in this next few minutes, but I'll miss a lot of details. So interestingly, so St. Augustine is kind of known for being a big sinner early in life, and he was intrigued by non-Christian philosophies and religions, the Manichees, and that thought all creation was bad and spirit was good, but he was pretty mired in flesh stuff, lusty stuff. You read about him, and it sounded like he's pretty much what we suffered from, what we today call sexual addiction. And but he was bright. He was like one of the smartest guys in Christian history. And which just sometimes people that with addictions are so bright, and that's part of what that almost gets in the way of their healing, because a common story of healing, one way to heal from addictions is to hand your will over, to surrender, to say I need help. I can't just figure this all out in my head. I need a support group around me, and 12 steps or something like that. And so a lot of people that I've known that have a hard time healing from addiction they're just so dang smart, and they can tell you all about it, and I think they just figure they can work it out because they're smart. But there's a whole nother level that drives our actions than our intellect, right? But anyway, so he prayed, and then he was getting intrigued. Like, he'd go to these lectures by St. Ambrose of Milan, the Archbishop, and he'd be intrigued, and he really liked what he heard, but then he'd go out and satisfy his addictions and all these things. And at one point he gave kind of a prayer that a lot of us can relate to, whether it's on our own levels of attachment to things or foods or other objects of addiction. He said, chase. So chastity is the opposite of lustiness. So make me not promiscuous, make me not feed my sexual addiction. His famous prayer was, Lord, make me chaste, but not quite yet. And so help me to not stuff my face with potato chips and sour cream, but next week, because I still like how it makes me feel this week, and that's it just makes you giggle a little bit because it's so human. It's such a make me free of all these things soon, but not now, because it's giving me too much pleasure right now. So that was kind of his deal, and his mother, whose feast day was yesterday, St. Monica. She prayed like crazy. she would just pray. She spent all her day like praying for her son, that he would become Christian, that he would see the light, that he would change his ways. And so she's like the patron saint of parents. And we know so many in St. James and everywhere else. You know, even then, you know, mothers had children and fathers had children that didn't keep the faith or, you know, behave the way they wanted to. But now, especially with keeping the faith and staying in church, it's just so common. It's just the new generation, what's growing. I know you know all this, but non-affiliated. People are just not affiliated. They don't want to commit to a religion. And there's a lot of, rather than seeing the depth of the riches in the Catholic tradition, they see the headlines and the past and the sins and the kind of wedge issues that maybe are on a side that they don't go with, you know, and agree with, and so then they just drop like flies. So there's a lot of parents out there praying for their children who recognize the value of their Catholic identity and beyond that, you know, their Christian identity, and want that for their children. And so many of us in the parish and around. So anyway, St. Monica would be like your patron saint if you're in that situation. And St. Ambrose, the same guy that befriended Augustine, told Monica, tried to console her, and famously said, "The son of so many tears could not perish." So you've been praying, so take hope. So many tears you've shed for your son. He'll be okay. Those prayers will have some effect, you know. And so anyway, then Augustine, you know, he became he had this guy. I just googled Augustine conversion. I like to read a little bit more about it. Apparently it's in chapter 8 of his famous autobiography, his Confessions. But apparently, you know, he kept being drawn intellectually to Christianity, but his habits, his addiction kept weighing him down, and he had various things. So it's not just like one thing, but there was like this one period in his life where he wrote down, "I had lost myself. I realized I had lost myself. I stank in the eyes of God. I stank in thine eyes." He prayed to God. That was his prayer. "Oh God, I lost myself. I stank in thine eyes." So that kind of self-disgust was part of his conversion story. I'm not big into self-disgust. I like self-compassion. But this was part of his story. Man, it worked. So, and he said basically, he heard this vision that said, "Take and read, take and read, take and read." And so he grabbed the Bible. He was talking about the Bible, and he turned it through the Bible until he came across Romans 13, verses 13 to 14, which, to summarize it, said, "Find your life not in reveling in immorality. Instead, put on the Lord Jesus Christ and make no provision for the flesh to gratify its desires." And it kind of hit him like right between the eyes, as they say. And so much of with addiction recovery is timing, isn't it? Like everybody quits smoking or something. They always say it's easy. It's so easy. I've done it 100 times. So I used to have a nicotine addiction, and so much of it was just like timing. Sometimes Ash Wednesday is a good time to stop. But it's to look for those moments when maybe the grace of God can cut through your hardened resistance. And that must have been a good day for him, because he said he just surrendered to God's grace. He kind of heard the word clearly, and he surrendered to God's grace. So, and then he was on, and then life. Then he enjoyed life so much, his life of faith so much, and he regretted. He said, "Oh my gosh, how could I have wasted all those years pursuing what led to nothing? Just substanceless life that I was leading, that was wrong and hurtful to others." And he prays to God. I don't have the quote here, but "Too late have I loved thee. I wish I had loved you sooner. I wish I'd found the truth of this sooner. Too late have I loved thee." You know, and I was chasing all these things that did not give life when life was right in front of me. I should have known what I know now all these years, that my soul is restless until it rests in thee, O God. My soul is restless. I try to fill it. I want this, I want that. I try to fill all this stuff. But the only thing that's going to satisfy my thirsty heart is the love of God. And even that always leaves us open, but we know that we're onto something just right. So, too late have I loved thee. Hope it's not too late for you. I know it's not, if you're watching this. I got my shavenation.com shirt on, by the way, Geo Fat Boy. If you ever want some shaving videos, go to YouTube and Geo Fat Boy. It's really a good guy. Anyway, that's frivolous. Good to chat with you a little bit. I'm going to go back. Got to finish a book. Got book club tonight. And God bless you. And we pray for all the souls that were part of the bodies of these people here who've died. Pray for all of our souls. Pray for Dick, for Mary, for Jerry. Help us all live our lives in light of the fact that one day we will die, and each day here is a gift. Help us use it well, O Lord. Amen. God bless you.